Should we start?
I think yes, let us start. Yeah.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all again to the online course on East Caucasian languages, organized by the Linguistic Convergence Laboratory of the High School of Economics, University of Moscow, Russia. My name is Alina Ruskich. I'm a research assistant in the lab and the moderator of today's session. Today is the second lecture in the series of 9, entitled Optatives in East Caucasian Morphology and Culture. It will be given by the head of our lab, Professor Nina Dobrushina. Before introducing our speaker, I would like to clarify some organizational issues. Each lecture will be recorded, live-streamed on YouTube and stored there afterwards. The lectures will go uninterrupted, followed by a question period. Those of you who are joining the lecture via Zoom will be muted throughout the session in the interest of the lecturer and sound quality. You may send your question via the Zoom chat or YouTube live chat. At the end of the talk, I will read selected questions out loud for the speaker to answer them. We apologize in advance that there might not be enough time to address all the questions, but Nina will be able to read them after the talk and hopefully find a way to answer you. It is my pleasure to introduce Nina Dobrushina, the head of the Linguistic Convergence Lab. Nina has diverse research interests, including Russian linguistics, the grammar of Daghestanian languages, sociolinguistics, and the study of multilingualism in Dagestan. She has performed extensive field work on language documentation and description of various ethnographic and cultural aspects in the villages of Dagestan. Besides, Nina is an expert in the semantics of non-indicative moods, which was the topic of her habilitation thesis. Her latest publications include papers in such respected venues as Language Variation and Change, Language, International Journal of Bilingualism, and Functions of Language. In particular, a number of Nina's studies are devoted to the grammatical category of the optative and its semantics. Among them are a vast chapter called the Optative, co-authored with Johann von der Auwera and Valentin Gusev, and other articles focusing on optative semantics in East Caucasian languages, namely the semantic field of the optative in Daghestanian languages, published in Topics in the Study of Language or Вопросы языкознания in Russian, and the optative domain in East Caucasian languages in the collection of articles Tense, Aspect, Modality, and Finiteness in East Caucasian languages, published by Bookmayer. Today's lecture will be on optatives in East Caucasian morphology and culture. Nina, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much for presenting me, Alina. I'm very glad to start this lecture. Let me start sharing my screen. Oh dear, why are there two of them? That's too much. No, what? And the wrong title, of course. Oh, that gone. Okay, I hope this is the proper.
Yeah, we can see you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, this is. I just checked that this is the proper slides. It just didn't change the title. Okay, never mind. Okay, so thank you again very much. I'm very happy to start this lecture, and thank you for coming here, all of you. So my topic is about optatives in Dagestan, and as usually I start with a map, just to remind you briefly where Dagestan is located. This is the this is the Republic of Russia and a part of the Caucasus. It has a sea coast of Caspian. It has a coast of Caspian Sea, but most of its part lie in rather high mountains. And it borders with Azerbaijan, Georgia, Chechnya, and other Russian, other part of Russia, because Chechnya is also a part of Russia. So what is important for us today is that this area is very dense in languages. More than 40 languages are spoken on a relatively small territory. And these languages belong to 3 language families. Daghestanian family or East Caucasian family is an indigenous one. And most of languages spoken in Dagestan belong to this family. But there are also 3 Turkic languages spoken in Dagestan and 1 Indo-European language. And even related languages are considerably different. So what about optatives? Optatives, as you know, are forms which are dedicated to express a wish or a hope of the speaker that something would happen or something would not happen. And here you have examples from 2 languages of Daghestanian family. First language is Rutul, Kina dialect, where we do our field research now. So you will have plenty of examples from this language. This utterance means have a safe journey, and the verb is expressed by a dedicated optative form. The second example comes from the Grammar of Ingush by Johanna Nichols. And again, it contains a dedicated form of optative, and the whole utterance means, may no other person ever experience such a night. So in general, I should say that optative is a typologically rare phenomenon. Not so many languages have it. For example, in the sample of World Atlas of Language Structures, it was found in 48 languages out of 319. And actually, I should say that this sample was biased towards the Caucasus, because as one of the authors of this chapter, I made all efforts to put there as many languages of Dagestan as I could. So it is biased. So in average, optative is even more, probably likely is even more rare phenomena than it is presented in WALS. And when we collected these examples, these cases, we found out that there are 2 areas especially rich in inflectional optatives. And these areas are the Caucasus and northern India and Nepal. We have much more, we collected much more cases on the Caucasus. So here you can see these orange dots. These are all languages which have inflectional optative. And this same here, orange dots stand for the languages which have this form. So inflectional optative is present in almost every language of the Caucasus. So far, I have a database of 45 languages of the Caucasus, not only of Dagestan, but of the whole Caucasus. And only 4 languages from those 45 have no inflectional optative. These are Armenian and Ossetic, which are Indo-European languages, Azerbaijani, a Turkic language, and unexpectedly Archi. I will talk about this language later. And which is even more interesting, I think, is that optatives are the only morphosyntactic feature which is found in all families present in the Caucasus, including in the European and Turkic languages, which are the newcomers to the area. These 2 families, Indo-European and Turkic, in general are not, it is not typical of them to have inflectional optative. For example, in the 30 languages from Indo-European family, which are present in World Atlas of Language Structures, only 3 have optatives. One of them is Albanian. So it seems so far that the only language of Europe which currently has this form is Albanian. And 3 languages out of 14 languages of Turkic family, according to WALS, have dedicated inflectional optative. So this category is indeed quite infrequent. And my claim is that, that inflectional optatives in the Caucasus show every hallmark of contact origin. First of all, They are typologically rare. They are present in almost every language of the area, and some languages even have 2 and even 3 inflectional optatives. Then it is found in languages of different families, including those where inflectional optatives are rare outside the Caucasus. And these languages are Tat in the European language and 3 Turkic languages, Kumyk, Nogay, and Balkar. And as I will show you in this lecture, optative may use unrelated material within the same family and even within the same group of languages. So, interesting question is, why optatives are so contagious? Why did they spread across such a large territory? Probably this is due to the fact that blessings and curses are a very important part of everyday speech rituals in the Caucasus. So in Daghestanian village, for example, optatives are uttered during the whole day. So starting from the morning until the evening, you have to bless every person you meet. It is rather difficult to prove it quantitatively that optatives are really, that wishes are really so prominent in the everyday life of people. But I think I found one way to show it, because this year we started looking attentively into the dictionaries of Daghestanian languages. And what we found out is that if the dictionary was compiled by one of the speakers of the languages of Dagestan, not necessarily the native speaker of this particular language, but just by a Daghestanian scholar, then the dictionary would contain a lot of examples of various wishes, which are present there just as an illustration of the meanings of some words. So, for example, in the Dictionary of Standard Dagwa, which is a large language of Dagestan, we found 271 examples of wishes, blessings, and curses. In the Dictionary of Karata, which is rather small language of Dagestan, it is spoken in several villages, we found 106 examples of wishes, and so forth. So just to compare, I decided to look into the Dictionary of Russian language, the very well-known dictionary by Ozhigov and Shvedova, which has 80,000 entries, so it is bigger than any of those languages of Daghestanian languages. And this dictionary contains only 20 examples, about 20 examples. So how did I find it out? I used 3 lexical keys, the same lexical keys which we used when we looked for the examples of wishes in the languages of, in the dictionaries of Daghestanian languages. These are particles pust, Russian particle pust, Russian particle da, and Russian conjunction shtoby and shtop. And then I looked all the examples I found, and there were about 20 of them. So the difference is really big. Now, what I want now to show you is how elaborate the situations which require wishes are. Some of those dictionaries do not only give wish as an example of some of the usage of some word, but they also give some comment about where this blessing or curse is used. So, for example, in Kubachi, there is a special wish which is uttered when one meets a blind person. So in this case, you should say, "May your sight come back to you." If one has got new clothes and you meet this person, you see this lady in her new dress, for example, then you should say, "Let it be worn out in health," which probably means that you should live long and wear this dress also long during all your life. Then in Kumyk, you have a special curse which is addressed to a stubborn person. You should say, "May he turn to stone," this person. In Tibetan, if someone eats too much, you can tell him, "May you eat poison." And in Avar, there is a special kind of blessing to the family which lost a small child. So if you come to their house, you can say, "May he prepare heaven for you," this small child. And this is, I like very much when you interrupt someone, then in luck, you can say, as a kind of excuse, "May your speech be interrupted by honey." And there is a special curse in luck, mentioned in the luck dictionary, towards children who don't come home when it is already late and dark, and you want them to be back, but they do not come home. Then you can say, "May those who do not want to come home be eaten by fierce cats." So this is a kind of joking curse. And the last one is a sort of blessing about blessing. So if you wished good, but you chose the wrong word or you misspelled something, then you can say, "Let it happen what is in their heart, rather than what was said by ways of a lapse of the tongue." Okay? So I hope now you understand why I am in love with optatives, and I spend a lot of time on working on this category. And I will, now let us discuss a bit more how it could happen that the prominence of wishes influence the morphology. So there is an idea that the shared discourse forms can enhance borrowing of grammar. And even more, that it is not the inflectional forms, the grammatical categories, which are borrowed, but these are the discourse forms which are shared, and this mediates the borrowing of forms. Or the forms can even not be borrowed, but just enhanced by these shared discourse forms. So I like the way how Tatiana Nikitina put it when she discussed the logophoricity in Africa, which is present in many African languages. So she says that there is no evidence that individual logophoric markers have been borrowed directly from one language to another. It is often a result of independent innovations. Rather than being spread through direct contact, logophoricity develops independently in certain areally prominent genres of discourse. And the spread of folk tales along with storytelling practices is a likely channel for such indirect borrowing. So I suppose that we see a similar picture in the languages of the Caucasus. Since the genres of blessings and curses are so prominent there, and probably inflectional optatives were typical of some indigenous families, these forms developed or probably maintained in most languages of this area. So even in closely related languages, as I will show you in this lecture, inflectional optatives can be innovations. They can be rather new, or they can be, or they can seem old. That might be different. So I think that they could be lost and renewed because of the importance of the wishes in the discourse. So this was the brief, not very brief introduction. And now I will talk about the presence of optatives in the languages of Dagestan, about their functional scope, their grammaticalization paths, and very briefly about the syntax of the wishes. And then we will discuss what exactly is shared in language contact in the languages of Dagestan. So first of all, not only optative is present in all Daghestani languages but one, but some languages even have 2 or 3 inflectional optatives. And these are the languages which do, at least the languages about which I could find enough information. Sometimes these 2 inflectional optatives have clear semantic contrast. More often, they seem synonymous. So this is the map which shows the number of inflectional optatives in Dagestan and around. White stands for 0 optatives, so you can see that not many languages are white. And this dark red color shows that there are 3 inflection optatives in this language. Now, one thing about the functional scope of the optatives in Dagestan is that they always express blessings and curses, as in these 2 examples from Isai Dargoa and from Bagwalal. Happy journey and may you burn in the hellfire. But there is another semantic type of wish apart from blessings and curses. And this is the optative which expresses dreams and hopes. In some linguistic literature, actually also in some of my papers, it was called weak optative or desiderative optative, as opposed to strong optative or performative optative. But in Daghestanian languages, this second type of optative, the one which expresses dreams or hopes, is usually expressed by some other mood form, not by inflectional optative, but for example, by conditional or arealis. So some form which is used in the dependent part of the conditional construction in the processes. But there are some languages, even in Dagestan, which have special dedicated forms for these 2 semantic types of optatives. So Kumyk, the Turkic language, has one form which is limited to second person. You can use it only with second person subject, which is used for blessings and curses only, as here, may you be glad or live merrily. And there is another form with this dedicated suffix, which is used to express dreams and hopes. But in general, this is not typical of Dagestan. This is something what you find in West Caucasian languages, for example, Abaza and West Circassian, so the languages of this family. But what is typical of Daghestanian languages is to combine the expression of blessings and curses with third-person command. So very frequently, you have a dedicated form, as in Rutul, this form with the suffix e or I or I, it might be different. And this form can combine with any person if it expresses wish, curse, or blessing, as here, may I be healthy, may you be healthy, and may she be healthy. So on this scheme, you can see this shaded boxes. And and you can also use the same form to express third-person command. So you can say, Said should mow the grass using the same form, but you can't use it as a command combined with a first-person subject or second-person subject. This is impossible. And there are some languages in Dagestan which have separate forms for each of these functions. For example, in Mehweb Dargwa, you have optative with the suffix b, which is available with all three persons and expresses blessings and curses. But you would not use it for third-person command. So if you want to express indirect command, like let Musa work or make Musa work, Musa should work, then you have to use another form, or you can also call it construction, but it is highly grammaticalized construction. So you should say Musa uze beta, which would mean let Musa work. And if you take up wish formula, the blessing with optative, like here, may Allah make you healthy, may health give, literally, and you suggest the speakers to use this just formula instead of the optative. They would not like it. So what they told is that this sentence can only be uttered by an atheist who thinks that God can be forced to perform an action. And you also do not use optative with the controllable actions. So if you do it, then the sentence will be interpreted as a wish which should be fulfilled by Allah. For example, here, you can see, may you be given a lot of money, but this is the Allah who has to do it, who has to give you a lot of money, okay? So Mehweb distinguishes between optative and passive. This was about the function of these forms very briefly. And now I will tell you about the grammaticalization paths of Daghestanian optatives, so about their sources, in those cases when we can tell something about their sources, when they are more or less transparent. So let us start with this stem. It happens quite often that optative is based on the imperative. So for example, in Avar, one of the Avar optatives, it has actually at least 3 of them, you have to take imperative and add suffix gi to the imperative. And this is how you get the optative form. The distribution of such optatives, which are based on imperatives, coincides more or less with the genetic group. So all our androthetic languages have at least one imperative-based optatives. But interestingly, there are two other languages which do it, and these are Tsahur, which is Lasgic, and Tsavatush, which is Nach. So this is the map. These darker colors, black and violet, I'm not sure whether it is violet, but I hope so. So these dark colors show you the languages which have at least one imperative-based optative. And now there is an interesting fact about the optative suffix. So in some languages, the suffix is derived from the imperative of the verb say. This was noticed by Girutier. And indeed, this is quite typical. For example, in Hvarshi, you have an imperative you take the imperative of this verb and you add suffix, which is actually a part of the imperative of the verb to say. Okay? And very similar forms are found in Hinuk, Tses, and Krata. So they are all also all based on the verb say. And in most of these languages, but not all, the optative suffix is attached to the imperative stem. So here you can see again that the geographic distribution is quite similar to the previous one. But there is one more interesting fact about this suffix. So all optatives which have say suffix, they also express third-person command. They co-express optative and jussive. And there are languages which have this say form which expresses only jussives. It is used only for second-person command, but not for blessings and curses. This is the case of Archie, and this is the case of luck. So in luck, for example, you have an inflectional optative, even two inflectional optatives, and special form, which is dedicated to the expression of jussive. And this form has say suffix. So here you can see two maps. This is the map which is only for say optatives. And this is the map where I also added say jussives. Okay, so, and you can see that this looks like an areal distribution because mostly these are languages which are in the area which is influenced by Avar. But we will come back to this observation. Okay, so I think that the possible path of grammaticalization of say optatives is that they have developed from jussives. So in the beginning, you have the construction of two imperatives, which is used to express third-person command. You would say he in some case form, which depends on the verb tell, like in English, to him. To him, go, tell, which means transmit my command to him, okay? Then this construction is reanalyzed by changing the case marking of the main participant. This happened in Mihweb. So in Mihweb, the addressee is encoded by interlative, but in the jussive construction, it is not interlative, but nominative or ergative, depending on the main verb. So you would say he, go, imperative, tell, imperative. And this would mean let him go. And probably at this stage, this form acquires new meanings, various meanings which are typical for jussives, such as permission or indifference. For example, in Mihweb, using this form, you can say, let the soup boil. So you can, it allows inanimate subjects. And then at the last stage, the meaning of this construction extends to the meanings of blessings and curses with first, second, and third person subjects. So now you can use this form to say, may he go to hell. And at some of these stages, this tell imperative may, or say imperative may undergo reduction, as it happened in most of these other Anglo-Cesic languages. Okay, this is the table which shows the combination of imperative or non-imperative stems and say or non-say suffixes. You can see here that in most cases you have imperative stem and say suffix, but you can also have imperative stem and some other suffix, which is not transparent. You can also have non-imperative stem and say suffix. At least this is reported by Gilloutier for tat and muhat variety of rutul. And you have plenty of other optatives which have nothing to do neither with imperative nor with the verb to say. Now, a little bit about this other type of optatives. So there is an interesting fact that in some languages, optatives resemble participles, or they do not only resemble participles, but they are, but participles are used with optative meaning. For example, this is the case of archi, where you have a true participle. This is not optative. This is a regular participle, but you can use it in the function of optative. You can say, may your children be healthy, using this participle form. And the same I found in Kina variety of rutul, where again you can use participle as a wish. Have a nice trip. So here you can have either the proper optative or the participle. In both archi and in kinarutul, participle agrees with the nominative, as it should agree. But in ahwach, there is even more interesting case, because there is a participle which can be used in wishes, and in this case, this participle agrees with addressee. So if you say, may your daughter have luck, if you tell it to the mother of this daughter, you will use one type of agreement marker. But if you address to the father of this girl, then you would use another gender marker. Okay. So, and the same form I found in Karata. I suppose the same, not the form, but the same usage of participles. Actually, I think that Maybe much more languages can do it, but these cases are just not documented. Okay, but then there are other interesting cases. For example, in Sahur, the optative contains the attributive suffix. So this form is different from participle because, interestingly, this verb has an imperative stem, but to this imperative stem, you add an attributive marker. And for example, here in this first sentence, what we see is the masculine, the attributive in the masculine form, in masculine, which agrees with the subject. The subject is omitted. May he be happy, or may she be happy. Here in this sentence, you see this attributive marker which agrees with non-animate subject. So with the word richness, may richness become. And in this last example, we see the attributive marker. The attributive marker is plural because it agrees with the word home, which is plural. May the home clan, may the homes turn to ashes. Okay, now what else has to do with participles? So some languages have dedicated optative participles. These are avar, lak, and agul. So for example, agul has this form with the suffix ivu. You can use it independently for wishes. It is used only for wishes, and actually more often for bad wishes, it seems from the dictionaries. But what you find here in this example is that this form is used as a participle. So this sentence means the letter came from my son, may he come back safely. The letter came, the letter of my son, written by my son, genitive, and may he come back is also in genitive, agreeing with son. And the second example is say something to this one, may her house burn down. Say imperative, something, word, to this one, and this may her house be burned down stands in locative because this locative is dependent on the verb say. Okay. So this is probably another way of grammaticalization of some optatives. So some optative forms are based on participles. And interestingly, there is another type of nominal optatives which is found in, at least in Dargwa languages. So most Dargwa languages have a kind of nominal optative. In some sources, it is called optative noun. These languages have a regular optative with the suffix b, ab, ob. It can be different in different languages. But then you also have a zero-marked optative form. It has no personal endings, and it can be used either independently independently as the main predicate or as an argument with case endings. These are examples from the grammar of Tanti Dargva by Nina Sambatova and Yuri Lander. So this is where this form is used independently. And here it is used as an argument in genitive. May the family of this man, may God keep him, blossom. Nina Sambatova and Yuri Lander suggested an explanation of this fact that verbal nouns can act as optatives. Why they can have nominal features. So their idea is that this is due to the fact that optative utterances as well as exclamatives are phytic because they express unexpected information. So for those of you who are not familiar with this term, phytic judgments are logically unstructured. They present a fact as a whole unit. And this is opposed to the bipartite subject-predicate structure of regular judgments. Okay. Well, so now I'm coming to this only language of Daghestanian family, which does not have inflectional optative. And this is Archi. So what's unusual about Archi? Archi is the one village language. This is not so unusual. There are other one village languages in Dagestan. But what is special about it is that it genetically belongs to a Lesgic group, but geographically and culturally it is separated from Lesgic languages for many hundreds of years. There is no contact with other Lesgic languages. And its grammar underwent significant changes. The village of Archi is rather close to Avars and Laks. There is about an hour and a half of walking distance to the nearest Lak village and more or less the same to the nearest Avar village. And Archi people used to be bilingual in both of these languages. They associate themselves, they associate themselves with Avars, but they know very well that their language is quite unique. This is the picture. This is a rather highland village, about 2,100 meters above the sea level. A beautiful place. And this language does not have dedicated inflectional optative. But since blessings and curses are as prominent in this language as in any other places of Dagestan, they have a regular way to express wishes, but rather unusual way, because what they do, these languages, they use for wishes second person imperative or prohibitive. For example, here you see this form, which is an imperative meaning come, children come home. But you can also use the same form in the blessing. And this would mean children come home joyfully. And in this case, the second person imperative is used with the third person subject. So if imperative or prohibitive denotes wish, then it can combine with first, second, or third person pronouns. And when, yeah, so this is another example. The verb become in a second person imperative. And here it can be used with the first person, second person, or with third person. May I become clever, may you become clever, may your son become clever. So when I, the first person who described this usage of imperative was Alexander Kibrik in his grammar. And then I worked with it in Archib, and I thought that it is unique, that it does not happen in any other languages of Dagestan. But this year, when we started looking into the dictionaries, I found out that other languages also have such case. For example, in the dictionary of Bottlich, we can find prohibitives, which are second person forms, used with a third person subject. May even a non-believer not see what I have seen, and may not see is expressed by prohibitive. And this is an example from Karata dictionary. May your mouth rot, may you not be able to speak, expressed with a second person imperative. These two languages, Bottlich and Karata, have regular optatives as well, while Archi does not. So probably very cautiously, we can suggest the following scenario for Archi, that in the beginning it lost the proto-Lesgic optative. I cite Alexeyev, who discusses the probable how the probably the proto-Lesgic optative could be formed. Then Archi developed this new pattern, and maybe it's developed it under the influence of the adjacent languages, because so far I found this interesting construction with second person imperative as optative only in Avar and Cesic languages. However, I did not find such examples in the dictionary of Avar so far, but that doesn't mean a lot, because Archi is contacted with the Charada dialect of Avar, which is quite different from the standard Avar, which is presented in the dictionary. Okay, so this was all about the grammaticalization of optatives. And now a couple of words about syntax of wish constructions. Actually, only one interesting fact about it. So let us consider the participants of imperative and optative situations. In imperatives, you have hearer and performer. And if with the second person imperative, the hearer and the performer coincide. With the third person imperative, they are different. In the situations of blessings and curses, you have hearer and the subject of the wish. So with the second person, you would say, may you be healthy. So the hearer and the subject of the wish coincide. With the third person optative, they are different. You would say, may your daughter be healthy. So you are the hearer and your daughter is the subject of the wish. But who is the performer of blessings and curses? In some expressions in European languages, the performer is God or devil, as in these two examples. In Daghestanian languages in Dagestan, the performer is clearly meant to be Allah, or sometimes a shaitan. And Allah can be overtly expressed in wish formulae as a vocative. For example, in this first example from Mihrab, this Ya Allah is a vocative which can be added to any wish formula. Then, if you have a transitive construction, then Allah can be stand in ergative case, and so be the subject of this transitive construction. It may also not be expressed overtly, as in this formula, but it still would come up in the translation, very likely. So they would most likely translate the sentence as, may Allah give you health, although Allah is not overtly expressed. But an interesting thing is that, at least in some languages, the ergative of Allah can appear also in intransitive constructions. This happens in Kinna dialect of Rutul. So you can say, may you have a son with the help of Allah. That's how they would translate it, literally. To you, may to you, son, become Allah in ergative, with the help of Allah. So although this is a clearly intransitive verb and it can never be combined with ergative, it cannot have ergative participant. In wishes, it can. So semantically, the situations with one or with two participants are equally controlled by Allah in these languages. And in some languages, it makes its way to the syntax. Now, I guess I will skip this slide because I don't have enough time. And this is my last part of this talk, which is about language contact. So let us discuss what exactly spreads via language contact in these languages. And I want to remind you this idea that the sharing of discourse forms mediates the borrowing of grammatical forms. So let us look what can be borrowed. First, I will consider optative forms. So whether there are some cases of material borrowing and whether there are some cases of structural borrowing or of grammatical replication. And then just one small example of wish formulae. What can be borrowed in terms of material and what can be borrowed in terms of construction. Okay, so as for the material borrowing, there are no convincing cases. So it seems that affixes were not borrowed in the languages of this family. For example, Avar is a very influential language. It is spoken as a second language in many languages of Central Dagestan, but its optative suffix is not found in any other languages, as well as lock suffixes, as lock optative suffixes. Lezgian, another large language of Dagestan, has the same suffix as Agul optative, but these languages are closely related, and it is much more likely that these two optative forms are just genetically related. Kumyk, another lingua franca of Dagestan, Kumyk forms are also not found in North Daghestanian languages. There is a case when languages have similar optative affixes, but they all are based on the verb say, and this verb say is still used in these languages. So again, it does not look like an borrowing, but because these affixes have clear sources in these very languages. But there are cases which look like structural borrowings. And the main case is this say pattern. It is likely to have spread by contact because it is typical for all our Andesic languages and to some languages which are close to this area, like some Dargo varieties and are cheap, but it is much less typical for southern Dagestan. So it is not found in most Lesgic languages and languages spoken in Azerbaijan. So probably this is the case of the borrowing of grammaticalization pattern. Maybe the usage of imperatives, second-person imperatives and prohibitives for optatives in our Andesic languages is also a case of such areal pattern of grammaticalization. Maybe not. I do not have yet enough data about these constructions. Okay. And now let us look at wish expressions. In order to understand what is borrowed, what is shared, this year, we undertook a new project. We decided to create a database of wish expressions based on the dictionaries of North Daghestanian languages, actually on the languages of Dagestan, because we want to include, we have already included Kumyk, and maybe we'll include some other non-North Daghestanian languages. So what we do together with our BA students of HSE University, we extract examples of wishes from the dictionaries and from other sources sometimes, transcribe them and provide word-by-word translation and code them for various features such as the type of wish, good or bad, the situation if available, and some other. So far we took 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, am I right? It looks like no, 9 languages. I used this database for this talk when I decided to look at one particular wish formula, which is an expression which is used for when someone leaves, so like a farewell formula, kind of bon voyage or have a nice trip in English. I based this case study, this small case study, on all languages for which I could get information, not only on the languages which are already in our database. So I'm very grateful actually to many people who are listening to me, because they were the experts who provided me with these examples. Sometimes you can find them in the dictionaries, most often, but sometimes you can't. So this is the whole list of the translations, literal translations of this farewell formula. So in some places, people say, may the road be good, or good road. They might say, may the road be straight. May the journey be good. May the journey be for your benefit. Or go well, even do well. May the road be open. May luck be, or success be. May let the road. The subject is omitted. And there are several cases of what looks like a borrowing, looks like a result of a contact. First of all, there is one clear case of material borrowing, because most Lesgic languages and Hinalug have expression of wishes which has the same Azerbaijani word. This word means good luck in Azerbaijan. But the speakers of Agul, Lezgin, and Rutul, with whom I discussed this formula, told me that this word has no translation. So they did not understand it. They use it, but they do not understand what it means. So here you have these formulae for these languages, so these Lesgic languages and Hinalug. And on this map, you can see these orange dots, which are all on the south of Dagestan. The part of Dagestan, which is indeed highly influenced by Azerbaijani. Interestingly, as Murad Suleimanov told me, the expression with this word exists in Azerbaijani, but it is not the most common way to wish a nice trip. Usually they would use another expression. And this Azerbaijani farewell formula contains the word road or way. So it means, may your road be successful, may your way be lucky. While in those Daghestanian, in those languages of Dagestan, they do not use the word road or way. Okay, so I don't know how this happened. Maybe, for example, the Azerbaijani dialects with which those languages were contacting used to have such formula without the word road, but then lost it, while Daghestani languages maintained. Or maybe this was just the case of inter-Dagestan spread of this formula with this Azerbaijani word. I really don't know, but that's what I found. Then another interesting case is the example of constructional borrowing. So almost all of our Endocesic languages, and interestingly, to some extent, Archi, have expression with a word which means straight or right. This is a very well-known Avar formula, Nuh bit agi, which literally means may the road be straight. And the same is found in Botlech, in Hunzib, and in many other languages of this area. You can see these orange dots here. These are all languages which have this expression. Interestingly, there is something similar in Archi, which is not our Endocesic language, right? So what Archi people say, they say alekmul ka. Ka is the word become, in imperative, while this word is not very transparent, but it is rather obvious that this first part is, this root is the word straight, okay? So they have something similar to this avoir formula, but still different. And then there is another interesting case, a case of the seems to be the borrowing of the construction on a very micro level. So there are two languages, Hinuk and Sez, which are spoken in the adjacent villages. Hinuk is a very small language of Dagestan, actually the smallest one, while Sez is bigger. And it seems, and both these languages have this rather strange formula, which literally means may let the road, or this verb also means send. It has no subject, but it looks rather possible that the subject is Allah. And actually, this might be the case, because at least in Sez, you can say, may Allah let the road, okay? And since this formula was not found in any other languages, it looks quite probable that this formula was borrowed by Hinuk people from Sez people, because Hinuk people are bilingual in Sez, while Sez people are not bilingual in Hinuk. Okay. Then there is another widespread pattern for this farewell formula, which is may the road be good, or good road. So all these orange dots here are the languages which have such formula. But I don't think we can take this as an example of language contact as a borrowing, because this formula is far too universal. So we find the same expression in French, bon voyage, or in Italian. And even English says something similar. So probably it is too universal to take it as a case of contact. These are examples from the languages beyond Dagestan, just to look at them. And now I'm coming to my conclusions. So what spread due to the contact? There is no material borrowing in the domain of affixes, as I said. And this conforms with this idea that, that certain categories can spread not through the direct borrowing, but by other ways. There are cases of structural borrowing, the say optatives and jacifs in the area which is under the influence of avar. Then there is a case of material borrowing in the domain of this one wish formula, the material borrowing from Azerbaijani in southern languages, and two cases which look like constructional borrowing in the wish formula, may the road be straight and may let the road. Interestingly, the same two areas show shared patterns of grammaticalizations and shared construction. And these two areas are the areas which are united by large lingua francas. First one is influenced by Avar, and the second one is influenced by Azerbaijani. So in the Avar area, we find the say optatives and jacifs, may be imperatives as optatives, and this formula, may the road be straight, okay? our antithetic languages plus Archi. And in this area, we find this case of material borrowing from Azerbaijani. And actually another feature, which I didn't mention yet, is that in general, it seems that Lesbic languages have less rich systems of optatives, because all these languages have just one inflectional optative, while languages of central Dagestan sometimes have even 3. And interestingly, this result looks similar to what Chiara Carato and Samira Ferhez found out when they studied the formula for good morning, morning greetings. They found out that there's one construction used in Avar influenced area and one case of direct borrowing from Avar in various languages of this area. And another construction which is found in the languages influenced by Azerbaijani. So in the domain of inflectional optatives, we found no evidence of direct borrowing, and optatives emerged rather as a result of independent innovations, but there are shared grammaticalization patterns influenced by the same lingua franca. And in the domain of wish formulae, we see rather plenty of independent formulae, even in adjacent languages, and at the same time, clear cases of direct borrowing and of constructional copying in the areas which are united by the same lingua franca. This, now I'm coming to the end. This actually, I came to the end, and these are my acknowledgements to many people who took part, who helped me to collect data, and of course to all people of Dagestan who share their knowledge with all of us. References, and thank you very much for your attention. This is the beautiful village of Anchich in the region where Karata language is spoken.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I should stop sharing my screen, right?
Yeah, I think yes.
Yes.
Now we will start the questions section. Okay.
Did I? No, sorry. Stop. Once again. How do I do it?
In the top of the screen.
Yes. Just a minute. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it worked. It just didn't work immediately. Didn't work immediately.
Yeah. Okay. I hope you see all questions and comments on my screen. There are some discussions.
Yes, but if you could zoom on it, then,
yeah, of course.
That would be even better. Thank you very much.
Maybe. Is it fine? Okay.
Yes. So first question is, would you consider other possible lexical keys for optative context, such as Hoidbe? Are they semantically different? Yes, that's a good question, of course. So we did not take these lexical keys. These are Russian particles which are used in optative constructions. And I expect that if we do it, then we would not find these dedicated optative forms, because these constructions, these are not blessings and curses. These are optatives of hope and dream. So I guess that we would find other forms in such constructions. And maybe I also think that there will be less of such examples, because these are not traditional ritualized formulae, right? And what the authors of these dictionaries tend to do is to give some kind of idiomatic expressions as examples of the words. but of course we should do it at some point and look at these keys also. Thank you. Now, I'm not sure I can read the whole discussion. Grammaticalization in Karata, the Basque type allocative, is registered also in Avar. Yes, thank you, Yasha. I know this case. Thank you very much. Maybe we can go further. Yeah. Question from Jesse. Why is the construction imperative plus say imperative hypothesized to be structural borrowing? Why not just inheritance? Well, this is a good point, of course, but so maybe in Ava and the Tzezik, this is indeed inheritance. Maybe this is inheritance. But it has clearly spread on other languages of the area as well, right? So, for example, in Lak, in Archi, Lak and Archi belong to other groups, so it could hardly be an inheritance. Yeah, but thank you. Maybe the Turkic word comes from kumuk into Daghestani languages. Yes, thank you, but this does not look probable because the area of the languages where this formula was found is influenced by Azerbaijani rather than by kumuk. So I don't think so. It doesn't look likely to me. They were not bilingual in Kumyk, they were bilingual in Azerbaijani, the speakers of those languages. General question, how often are optatives and future tense forms co-grammaticalized? I'm not aware of such cases at all. This was a feature of all Georgian optative suffixes, but future tense has been replaced by preverbs. Well, so far, I think that it does not take place in the languages of Dagestan. Maybe I missed something, so if you know such cases, then please tell me. Thank you. What system of classification is used for the various types of wishes in the database? The pre-existing system. Yes, it was developed and it is still under development because we have just started this project just only this year. So we are open to any suggestions and ideas because so far we used only very simple classifications such as good and bad and some types of situations, but we will, I hope we will add something else. So if you have ideas, then please tell me. Do we have data about when the feature of inflection optative spread to Kumyk? Yes, so this is a good point, of course. And there are two inflectional optatives in Kumyk, as I said, and both suffixes are found in other Turkic languages as well. So they are not new, they are not borrowed, nothing like that. But in most other Turkic languages, these affixes are not anymore used for optatives, for wishes. For example, the suffix gai, in the languages of Siberia is used to express probability, a kind of epistemic mood. But while in the languages of Dagestan, it is used for wishes. So I suppose that maybe it is not the case that these forms were innovated, were developed, but rather that they kept their optative function, probably. Okay, this is a long question indeed.
Yeah, and I think it's
I've noticed that you include the ossetic, lacking inflectional opening. I was wondering why. Yes, so maybe I will read this long comment later and so far just answer the question why. So I might be wrong, of course, because I never worked on ossetic, but there is a very recent paper by Arseny Vidrin about ossetic forms, and he came to the conclusion that ossetic forms which denote optatives are rather some kind of arealis or conditional moods rather than the proper optatives. They have much wider functions than only wishes. So this looks much more similar to some kind of conditionals and arealises with optative functions than the proper optatives. At least this is something which looks very different from we find in other languages of the Caucasus. So this is my answer so far, but I will definitely read your comment. Thank you.
okay.
Yeah. Again, about ossetic. How distributed according to temporal? Well, in Daghestanian languages, optatives do not distinguish tense, if this was your question. No tense markers on optatives, just one form. Okay. The cases of optatives based on imperatives. In Georgian, both the optative and imperative are always based on the aorist stem and take narrative case if transitive or an ergative. Oh. Okay, so this is the comment. Thank you. Thank you. I might want to ask you other questions, but the problem is that I don't know whose question this is. When you use, this is Thomas Weir. Okay, now I understand. Sometimes when you use some kind of nickname, then I don't know who was that.
Okay, yeah. There are several comments.
Yes, thank you about Azerbaijani. Yes, I know this expression, good road, exactly. In Kyrgyz, oh, interesting. Yes, sin suffix. Sin suffix. So sin suffix in Turkic languages, this is the last comment, is used, it has functions which I would define as jussive rather than optative, because this is the form in sin, which is used in third person only, and its main function is to denote indirect command. It also is used to express wishes, but this is not what I called optative in this talk, because jussives are rather widely spread in the languages of the world. So if we would look at the forms which are restricted to the third person and express indirect command, then we would find plenty of languages which do it. But I was talking about another type of form, which is not restricted to third person and whose main function are blessings and curses, not indirect wish, not indirect command. But thank you.
I think that's all.
Thank you very much then. Interesting questions and lots of comments. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to thank Nina and everyone for questions and discussions and comments.
Okay. Thank you, Arina. And come again next time, next Wednesday.